Welcome everyone, Vidette Mayer here. Welcome to the Daily Tune-In for Friday, October 22nd. So how do you feel? I feel like it is lighter. The last couple of days, both energetically as well as just in the environment, felt pressurized. It almost felt like a vice that was kind of like squeezing the stuff out of us. I know a couple days ago I mentioned that I had a pretty good night with a migraine, and I kept saying like my head felt like it was in a vice. And then the 2 days afterwards, the same feelings as I tuned into, like, how does my environment feel? How does the energy feel? How does my body feel? And many of us were feeling pressurized. Our bodies were kind of expunging energy, and in the symptom of that was great pain. So whether you've been in emotional pain or physical pain, it was very much kind of the pathway of this week to move through. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that when I get into the Schumann resonance, because it is up, and it came up shortly after I recorded the daily tune-in from yesterday. And there were some interesting patterns on there. So I'm going to talk you through those and let you know what's happening on the Schumann and what's happening in the magnetosphere. And then we'll be right back with the message. Let's take a look at the Schumann resonance first. I think this is quite interesting because yesterday when I did the recording for the daily tune-in, the Schumann resonance was down. And when it came back up, I noticed that there were some real interesting patterns on here. So these frequency patterns here are quite interesting, and you'll see that there was quite a bit of activity that goes all the way from our densest frequencies within our, when I say bodies, I mean our spiritual 5D self, emotional 4D self, and our physical 3D self. So if you think of it in terms of the Schumann, up here is going to be your physical element, the physical parts of you. Around here is going to be your emotional parts, and then down here, actually this is kind of like your emotional parts here, and then down here is going to be your superconscious, your spirit, your soul level frequencies. So when we talk about, I always talk about bringing you up to, tuning into our soul frequencies, is tuning into these higher frequencies of us. And this is where the superconscious is. This is where these frequencies go beyond our human understanding. So you'll see that we got quite a bit of activity that went through all parts of us yesterday. And what I also think is really interesting right now, as I record this, we are getting some pretty big blasts that are really just going into the physical parts of us. So this is going to be hitting into the more denser, the densities within us, the compromised areas of our physical bodies, whether that is, and it also is coming into our heart areas, the 4D parts of us. So emotionally, there's going to be some disruption today. Physically, it looks like there's going to be some disruption as well. Now, it doesn't mean that you need to fear this. It just means to expect it. I do know many people are in a lot of physical pain. I've had several conversations. I know in our own household, physical pain is quite prevalent. And the thing that we have to remember is, as these energies are coming in and kind of blasting away these denser parts of us, it's going to have to purge from our bodies. So pain is coming up for us to see it, and where it appears in our body is really important, because that will show us where the emotional root of the pain lies. And when we see where the pain is in our physical bodies, and then go into the emotional root and see where it is, or what it is it's actually triggering this pain, then we can actually take a look at the emotional root, start to look at that, purge it out of our system by processing it. And once we allow ourselves to do that, then all of it is purged then from our spiritual, emotional, and physical bodies. So the resistance of being in pain is what keeps it. Arguing for or looking for reasons for why it's there. We can always find a logical reason, But for every single, we can say it's runs in my family, or it's because I have this illness, or it's because I have a disease of some sort. And yet all of that is within the body because there is an emotional root that has not yet been processed and purged from the system, from the energetic system. And when that happens, the physical parts of it will then eliminate and move out of the body. So don't resist what's happening. Don't resist this piece. The other thing, too, that I want to point out is you see these, have been pointing these out now for a couple of days, but you'll see these little zaps right here. This goes then into this is the beta brainwave frequency right here. So these our beta brain waves are getting zapped quite a bit, and the beta brain waves are where our learning and our new skills are learned. It's the brain waves that are involved in critical thinking and in problem solving, in mental focus. They're most active when we are awake, and yet we know, I'm going to use just common terminology here, okay? We know that a lot of humans are not quite awake, even though in waking hours, but they're not critically thinking. They're not using critical problem solving. They're just going and listening to everything that comes across as fact and then moves on. No, there aren't as many people doing the research and critically thinking their way through their jobs, through the relationships, through the media, through everything that we have going on in our world. So these little zaps are really starting to penetrate these beta brain waves, which is bringing people awake. It's zapping those brain waves into an awareness of critical thinking and problem solving. So when we say we're in a mass awakening, it's because these frequencies are coming in and zapping these brain waves awake in the humans that haven't been awake. So this isn't a judgment, this is just what's happening. So those of us who have been on the conscious journey for a while are still getting our own beta brain waves zapped. So that is why we are getting even higher consciousness and new ideas, new avenues, new interests. I said last week in one of the daily tune-ins that you'll start to have new interests that all of a sudden you're like, whoa, where did that come from? I'm going to go study that. It's because you are being zapped awake, so to speak, in a whole deeper level, so that you are now wanting to go and find and be interested and critically think your way through a new interest and learn. It's an extremely fascinating process to be aware of. Okay, so we saw those crazy patterns on the Schumann. Crazy patterns, but all in our favor. All of these newer frequencies, all of these, what I call zaps, it's not like a scientific term, it's just how I explain it to myself, how I understand it, how it comes to me intuitively, and I speak a lot in metaphors. So when I say a lot of that kind of terminology, it's nothing to fear, it's helping us come up into our frequencies so that we can resonate as with the earth as she starts to get into a higher and higher frequency. So spiritually, what we're going to be called for today is to be balanced in the balance between our soul-driven path, as well as keeping space open for the ego personality part of us. There is this ebb and flow between the two. Both are absolutely needed, because if we try to move too quickly spiritually or from the soul, and the mind, which is the home, is the program of the ego, it can't move fast enough because it has to allow its own time to expand and grow into where the soul is leading it. So if we go too fast, the mind will have a psychotic break, quite frankly. That's what happens. So if we can just allow our ego and our personality self to still have a say and yet have the patience and compassion, which the soul always has, with the ego as it continues to catch up with where the soul is leading it. Because as we've been saying for the last couple of weeks, the soul is in the lead. She gets to decide because she is taking us on our soul pathway, the true pathway that we are here and we are meant to live. And the more and more we're getting these frequency zaps that are going all the way down into that super conscious level, into those the theta waves of our brains, it's awakening, and we're getting the pineal gland activated, and that is coming into higher and higher expression. So the spiritual selves, the spiritual part of us, is really getting activated. So we want to like let it go and run, but we have to allow for the ego part, the ego part of us to still catch up. So there's this ebb and flow that has to be handled with grace and ease. It's like it's been on a source of conversation, the grace and ease piece of this, because we are in such a massive growth spurt consciously in humanity that it's sometimes fun to be like, okay, we're just going to run with what the soul wants, but our ego has to be able to come along and grow and expand in its own time. So that divine timing is, if we did everything just from the soul without any influence from the ego, we'd have everything just like that. But we can't go from one end of the pendulum to where we were, mainly ego-led for, thousands and thousands of years. And if we're talking about you, for probably majority of your lifetime, you've been led by the ego, because that's how our traditional education system teaches us. Everything is the physical base of who we are is taught. So as we come up into these higher consciousnesses, and we are starting to learn that there's a whole different way of being, we've got to allow for the ego to understand that it's okay for it to let go of having control, and yet it still has a say. Moving then into the emotional piece of us, that could lead to some, if you're ebbing and flowing spiritually, sometimes emotionally that means you're like back and forth, and you're feeling this beautiful brightness, and you're feeling excitement from these new soul-led ideas and these soul-led urges that you're getting. And yet the ego is in fear because it doesn't quite know, but it's, it might be not so much in fear. It might be you might be in between, like this insecurity. Maybe you're angry a little bit because you're like, I want to go follow this, I want to go follow this idea that I have. However, blaming, maybe so-and-so is not allowing me to do that, or my boss keeps saying no to this idea. So there could be excitement at what you want to walk into and step into, and yet there's also some anger or insecurity, maybe some overwhelm, because you're like, I have this idea that's lighting me up, but I don't know, I can't go and follow it because I've got this other thing to deal with. This is where we have to deal with the other thing, and that's then how the ego will then catch up and will be able to more willingly, right? Because then the ego will move up to willingness, which you're now in a life expansive place. But as you deal with the issues, the limitations that are stopping you, your ego is saying, but we can't go there until we take care of this. Take care of it in whatever way, whether you need to put a boundary up, whether you need to, lose the circumstance or the relationship altogether, whether you need to work with the relationship. This is the divine timing piece, If we just were always soul-led, we'd manifest things just like that, and we'd just go on our way and live a soul-led life. But because we have so much of that baggage, so to speak, of our ego-led lives, we still have to be shedding some of that. And the faster that we do that, the faster the ego says, okay, fine, we've let go of that. Now I'm ready to move forward. So the divine timing piece is, how willing are you to do the work that the ego is making you have to do, because it's showing you where the limitations are. And there really are no limitations, but there are things that we have to take care of that we have created because of the filters of the ego that the thing was created in. So let's take a look. I'm going to shuffle the cards today and just kind of see what emotion wants to be explored today, even more so. I love these cards. They've helped me understand things so much more. When I feel things and I kind of go through and I break them down, a lot of times I'll understand things more. And if I have any kind of pain, weird pain in my body, Overwhelm just came up. If I have weird pain in my body, a lot of times I kind of know it now, but if you look at the cards, it'll tell you where things show up. So today, Overwhelm is the name of the game, and I think this came up a couple days ago as well. But again, it's led by the ego. Anything that makes you feel scattered, fearful, resentful, like all the anything that makes you kind of go like this, they're always led by the ego, because it's a filter. So Overwhelm is just like a filter. If you take a picture and on your camera and then you choose all the different filters and you sort through them, there's the same thing happens in our emotions. Each emotion is some kind of filter of the current present. Okay, back to the filters. My camera just crapped out, so I had to come back to it. But what I was saying is each of these life-constricting emotions is a filter of the ego. And when we are clear and in the present moment and in the divine flow of our soul, we then move up to these higher emotions where we are fully clear. There are no filters, because joy and peace and love are so divinely inspired that they are of the presence of spirit, source, God, whatever you want to call it. So our job is to take the filters off. And isn't that kind of metaphoric for pictures that we post and all of that? Do we post them with all the filters so that we look less wrinkled and have freckles when we don't have freckles, or take the freckles off if we do have them? Is that real? Or do we just simply post ourselves with zero filters and allow ourselves to be truly and fully us? Same thing goes for our emotions. So if we're looking through the filter of overwhelm, it's our ego putting that filter over so we don't fully see the truth of what we are, because when we're focused on energy, when we're focused on ourselves, when we're focused on the present moment, we then come out of overwhelm. Overwhelm typically is lands, the energy of it will sit in our glands and in our sexual organs. So when we're overwhelmed, that stuff is going to be compromised if we don't allow ourselves to come back into the present moment and process the overwhelm out in that moment and come back to that present moment and say, okay, I focus on my energy, I focus on my breath, I focus on joy, I focus on love. Whatever it is that you can focus on that brings you out of that moment, you're then processing that emotion of overwhelm, and you're clearing that filter from that present moment that's really taking you down the ego-led pathway, rather than clearing it so that you can continue on your soul pathway. The alarm point is vision. The opposite emotion is vision. So again, when you're in it, you're in the overwhelm. As soon as you become aware of it, and remember, our beta brainwaves are getting a good waking up right now. So you're going to become more aware and more aware of your present moment. You're going to become more aware and say, wait, what is this? I don't feel very expansive right now. Oh God, I'm so overwhelmed. I have this going on and this going on and this going on. What is the vision in that moment? Even if you're at work and the vision is really to be having your own business and working from anywhere in the world or whatever, in that very moment, what is the vision? The vision is to feel at peace. The feeling is to feel at one with your soul. And you do that by simply breathing through that moment. And you know what? If you keep the vision of whatever it is that you want, having the business or having whatever that you can do anywhere, in that moment, once you shift to that peace, you are now going in the direction of that higher vision, because you are now elevating your frequency up to the place of peace rather than resonating at the place of overwhelm, where manifestation is unattainable. You're not going to get anywhere by operating completely in overwhelm. So the faster you clear that, the faster then you can get back on your soul's path. Keep that higher vision so that you keep resonating up more and more towards it until you have it. That's what this daily tune-in is all about. Tuning in every moment. Do I feel expansive? If not, what is the filter that I'm in, and how do I clear it so that I can get back and shift on the opposite pathway then, where my ego wants to take me right now? Because that is the frequency. That is what we're talking about. So physically, breathe. Oh, just keep breathing. And yes, we unconsciously breathe, but how we are programmed and how, with all of these filters in our energetic bodies, we breathe so shallow for most of humanity. We are in a constant state of, quite frankly, hypnosis, but it's unconscious hypnosis, which is dangerous. Because when you are unconsciously hypnotized, you are taking in every single thing unconsciously as fact, and it goes into your unconscious and it becomes part of your program. When you are fully aware and in your soul-led frequency, you then can discern what information you see. Remember the critical thinking we saw that's getting in the beta brain waves. That is all being activated more and more and more. That way, you are now critically thinking more. So when you see some information, you might say, that doesn't quite resonate with me. It doesn't quite feel right. That's all you need. You don't have to go down the rabbit hole to prove it to yourself unless your ego requires it. But your ego will require a proof of a lot of things, and that'll take a lot of time. If you start to just practice saying, does this feel right to me? If it doesn't, you leave it be. You don't have to argue it with everybody else. You simply have to stay in this present moment in the frequency of your soul, and you do that by breathing through every moment that doesn't feel expansive. So if those are a lot of moments where you I very rarely feel expansive, that is what I'm here to help you with. That is my training, that is my experience in both professionally and personally. The conscious awareness of how we operate in every given moment is what I am here to help you with. So if you have more moments during your day where you are not feeling expansive than you do feeling expansive, you can either do this on your own, or you can ask for support, ask for help. I'm here for you, and there's a lot of other people as well if I don't resonate with you, right? So even if it comes down to you know what, I do need support, and you see or come across somebody or hear of somebody, you simply ask yourself in a quiet, peaceful moment outside of overwhelm or fear of it, and say, hey, is this person for me? If you get a yes, wherever that shows up in your body, then you move forward. If not, you don't. It's as easy as that. It's discernment. It's critical thinking, but critical thinking is fueled by your intuition, because your intuition is your soul, and that is plugged into the ultimate infinite knowledge base that we have access to, and that is the source of all things. Today is a free day. We are we're not right now getting blasted by energies all around us. Breathe, allow yourself to integrate these higher frequencies that you've stepped into because you've purged out the old. And as the old still bubbles up, this is the day to be fully aware of it and to work through those filters. I know you're doing a great job because I can feel it. I can feel it in the atmosphere. I can feel it in the energy of our collective today. It's lighter. We're feeling freer. We're getting closer and closer to our sovereign, free selves, where we discern for ourselves what is right for each and every individual one. And when we discern from our sovereign selves, what's right for us is right for all of humanity. So it doesn't hurt anyone else. When we have more human beings operating in their sovereign and free self, then the rest of our world is going to change rather quickly. So just keep working on you, and don't try to change everything out there, because it starts with what's in here. That is simply a projection of you. I know that's hard to hear sometimes, but I know sometimes I look at it and I'm like, man, that ain't nothing that I've created. But we all have, in lifetimes and lifetimes of energetic creation, we have manipulated ourselves, we have deceived ourselves, we have created what's going on right now, and it's only ours to recreate. We've got to watch it fall down, and we have to break down ourselves within in order to project a whole new recreation of our outer worlds. So keep going, be in your sovereign self, and breathe. I'll see you on Monday on the next Daily Tune-In. Mwah! Have a good one. If today's Daily Tune-In brought you value and insight, please consider giving in return for that value by leaving a love offering. All donations go to keeping this platform operating and in service to humanity during these transformational times. To go even deeper into your soul frequency, please consider these offerings. For personal insights into your most pressing questions and concerns, get an energetic insight reading delivered directly to your inbox. To take a quantum leap in your transformation, book a personal session with Vedette. There are several options available based on how deeply you would like to go into your most desired soul-led life. To find more information and to book your sessions, please visit VedetteMayer.com.